let me then get right into it, because as I was in a cab yesterday going from Hobby Airport to give a speech in Houston as the list was being tweeted out, one member alphabetically at a time. And so like everybody else, I discovered the list sort of piecemeal. And as we got into the worst list, and we got down to Larry Phillips, I tweeted your editor, Jake Silverstein, boy, I hope there were some Democrats between the letters of P and Z on this list, because I'm not seeing any Democrats on the worst list, and indeed, no Democrats. Not a single Democrat on the worst list. Really?
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 Absolutely.
You couldn't find a single Democrat to put on the worst list.
Well, we could find a couple of Democrats, but I don't think they qualified as worst.
Do you understand the perception of this will be Texas Monthly suspicions confirmed?
Not my problem.
Really? Really? So, I initially asked, I said, well, you know, I've been involved with this magazine and this story for many, many years. I don't ever remember that you put all members of one party on the worst list, and then I found out 1973.
And 1987.
1987.
And okay, that's late breaking news. So 87 as well. All members of one party. So only twice in the history of this magazine have you done that before.
And both times it was a function of the partisan makeup of the body. It wasn't a function of where Paul was coming from, or where I'm coming from, or where the new editor,
Patty in the case of 87
was coming from. Yeah. It was a function in 1987 of the Republicans not having enough numbers to influence the policy making for good or for bad.
Do you happen to know how many Republicans there were in the ledge in 87? Were there fewer than there are Democrats now?
The House was about the same.
As it is now?
Yes, yeah. as the number of Democrats now. Right. The Senate, there were fewer.
There were fewer Republicans at the time. I mean, you know, there were a lot of people who were not on this list, these lists, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but it seems to me that, you know, and people don't yet know who's on the dishonorable mention list. There are some Democrats on the dishonorable mention list. Did you have any discussions? I'm sure you must have had discussions, you know, God, if we do this, what's the perception of this going to be?
We did not have that discussion. We pick who we think ought to be on the worst list, and we put those people on the worst list, and we don't have quotas. We just don't. We never have. We don't ask, gee, why isn't there, you know, a Hispanic woman on the worst list? We don't do that.
Right.
You know, we try to find the people who, for better or worse, influence the session the most.
Do you agree that that's the headline of these lists? No Democrats on the worst list?
I don't agree with it at all, because there's a reason for it. The Democrats did not really have enough numbers to be consequential this session in either a positive or a negative way.
But you did put some on the best list.
Some on the best list. But, you know, there were two Democrats, in my opinion, who you didn't ask, but I'll tell, who I thought could have been on the worst list.
And they were?
One of them was Symphonia Thompson, because, again, process. She was the best last time. She was the best last time. She abused her position on the local calendar to advance her bills. It was a position of trust. You're not supposed to do that. Symphonia is an icon. You know, I love Symphonia. You love Symphonia. We all love Symphonia. But you have to. But even an icon has to play by the rules, and she didn't do that. And David Simpson called her on it.
Who was the other Democrat who you said might have been a contender for the worst list?
I'm trying to think who.
Trey Martinez Fisher.
Yeah, Martinez Fisher.
Who you named as Bull de Brazos, which is kind of a good and bad award combined.